In politics, every word carries a price, and the United States is now seeing firsthand just how costly the White House's recent rhetoric can be. By the end of 2025, the American tourism industry has not just lost a year, but an astonishing $5.7 billion in revenue. And the cause of this collapse isn't an economic downturn. Rather, it's the severe diplomatic tension with America's northern neighbor, Canada. President Donald Trump's remarks treating Canada as an inferior territory of the United States and his repeated suggestions that the country could be annexed as the 51st state have deeply offended Canadians, striking at their national dignity. When the numbers sound the alarm. The data paints a troubling picture. According to the U.S. Travel Association, international tourism spending in 2025 dropped by 3.2%, with Canadians being the primary factor behind this decline. Massive drop. As of October, air travel from Canada to the U.S. has fallen by 24%, while road travel is down by 30%. Border towns in crisis. Restaurants in the state of Maine report the worst year in their business history, even worse than during the COVID-19 pandemic. Job losses. Duty-free shops along the border have seen devastating layoffs, with some losing up to 80% of their workforce. Empty hotels. Tourist hotspots like Florida have seen a nearly 20% decline in Canadian visitors, and ski resorts in Montana say their booking levels have almost evaporated. This isn't government policy, it's public backlash. The most striking aspect is that this boycott wasn't imposed by the Canadian government. It comes from the people, a voluntary collective response by more than 20 million Canadians. When a foreign leader mocks your sovereignty, ordinary people respond with their wallets. A Longwoods International study shows that nearly 60% of Canadians are now removing the U.S. from their travel plans, choosing alternative destinations instead. Growing anxiety in Washington. The situation has spiraled so far out of control that American senators are rushing to Ottawa to plead for an end to this unofficial boycott. Jobs for American workers are now at risk. In this political war of words, the casualties are ordinary businesses and ordinary people. We were discussing the $5.7 billion loss just moments ago, but this loss is more than a number on paper. It is an existential crisis for American small and medium-sized businesses. Newly released data shows that according to a survey by Angus Reid, nearly 48% of Canadians have either canceled or indefinitely postponed their planned trips to the United States. Quebec, a single province, a $3 billion blow. The biggest shock comes from Quebec. From this one province alone, the United States is losing an estimated $3 billion in potential revenue. In other words, 1 out of every 5 Quebec tourists has canceled their U.S. travel plan. This is not a statistical anomaly. It is the harsh reality of empty hotel rooms and deserted restaurants. State-by-state devastation. According to the December report of the Congressional Joint Economic Committee, the border states are facing a full-blown crisis. Maine. Moishe, a business owner in Old Orchard Beach, reports that Canadian tourist numbers have dropped by 50%. In his words, this is a worse year than COVID. New Hampshire. Bookings at state-run campgrounds are down 71%. Hotel owners in North Conway say weekends which were once packed to capacity now have 30% of rooms sitting empty. Montana. About 80% of Montana's international tourism comes from Canada. This year, cross-border traffic has fallen by 19%. In Kalispell, credit card spending by Canadians is down 39%, leaving the local economy on the brink of paralysis. Florida and Hawaii. The warm weather appeal normally draws long-term Canadian snowbirds, but even they are staying away. Florida has seen a 20% decline in Canadian tourists. Many Canadians are even selling their vacation homes there. A business disaster, one example. Consider a single hotel in Montana that suffered a loss of $38,000 in one night after a Canadian sports team canceled a block reservation of 70 rooms and a 200-person dinner. This one incident alone illustrates how the Trump administration's policies are directly draining the pockets of grassroots American businesses. The congressional report makes it unmistakably clear. For generations, Canadians traveled to the U.S. to visit friends and family, to shop, and to enjoy cross-border hospitality. But President Trump's unjustified tariffs and provocative remarks have fractured that long-standing trust.
We've spent all this time talking about numbers and billions of dollars, but the real strength of this boycott doesn't lie in spreadsheets. It lives in the hearts of ordinary Canadians. The information we've gathered shows that this is no longer just a political disagreement. It has become a cultural and deeply personal rejection. Stories of personal sacrifice, when even $5,000 doesn't matter. Canadians who once saw the United States as a second home now feel insulted at the thought of visiting. Lena Yousfi, an attorney from Vancouver who used to visit Hawaii 4 or 5 times a year and was even considering buying a condo there, has canceled all her plans. In her words, "When it comes to the dignity and values of our country, we are compelled to stand firm." Even more striking, a woman from British Columbia willingly forfeited a $5,000 deposit she had paid for a Palm Springs trip. She didn't postpone the trip, she canceled it outright. To her, losing $5,000 was preferable to spending a single dollar in Trump's America. Choosing alternatives from Florida to Cuba and Mexico. A Florida hotel owner shared a surprising story. One of his regular customers abandoned a $1,000 deposit and chose to visit Cuba instead. Think about that. A country under American sanctions now feels safer and more welcoming to Canadian travelers than Florida. The numbers reflect a shift. In 2025, Canadian travel to international destinations excluding the U.S. rose from 12% to 23%. New preferred destinations for Canadian snowbirds include Mexico, Costa Rica, and the warmer countries of Europe. Staying closer to home. The Canadian government is also taking advantage of this shift. Manitoba has increased its tourism budget by $4.5 million specifically to attract travelers who once spent their winter vacations in the United States. A breakdown of trust. An Ipsos survey shows that 68% of Canadians have now lost trust in the United States. Trump's tariff policies and his threats of absorbing Canada have created a lasting resentment among more than 20 million people. The crisis facing the American tourism industry today cannot be fixed by lobbyists or senatorial pleas. Nothing will change unless Trump's aggressive rhetoric comes to an end. At this stage of the report, we see a striking irony. On one hand, President Trump is threatening to swallow Canada. On the other, America's border towns and tourism boards are literally apologizing to Canadians and pleading with them to come back. This isn't a decline, it's a collapse. Duty-free shops along the border are in dire condition. Between January and April, sales dropped by 40 to 50%. A business owner based in Surrey says his business has collapsed by 80%. Where he once employed 20 workers, now he operates with a skeleton crew of just 3 or 4. We miss you, America's desperate outreach. U.S. tourism boards have finally realized that political rhetoric doesn't fill cash registers. They are now launching emergency response campaigns. Montana, they've introduced a Canadian Welcome Pass, offering special discounts at hotels and restaurants. Their campaign message is simple: we miss you. Palm Springs, the entire city is covered with signs proclaiming Palm Springs loves Canada. The mayor is now deeply worried the city cannot absorb an annual loss of $300 million. California and Las Vegas, these destinations are rolling out special sales and discount offers in an attempt to lure Canadian tourists back. The issue isn't money, it's respect. But what Americans are failing to understand is this: discounts won't fix the problem. Canadians aren't boycotting because of travel prices. The issue is that Trump has spent a full year refusing to acknowledge Canada as an independent nation. You cannot insult someone and then try to win them back with coupons. Senator's trip to Ottawa, a rare humiliation. The situation has deteriorated so badly that a delegation of 4 influential U.S. senators, including Senator Maggie Hassan, traveled to Ottawa to meet Prime Minister Mark Carney. They effectively apologized for their president's behavior and pleaded for relief from this economic boycott. According to the U.S. Travel Association, even a 10% drop in Canadian tourists puts 14,000 American jobs at risk. Right now, the decline is above 25 to 30%. Donald Trump may have believed he could intimidate Canada into submission, but the outcome is the opposite. Canadians are spending their money in countries that respect them, whether that means Cuba, Mexico, or simply their own backyard. Today, the American tourism industry faces a bleak future as ordinary working people pay the heavy price of political arrogance.
Friends, the $5.7 billion loss we've been discussing may only be the tip of the iceberg. If this commercial conflict expands to Mexico, China, and Europe, total losses for the U.S. tourism sector could reach $22 billion. By the end of 2025, America's travel trade deficit may climb to $70 billion, a historic first in which more Americans are traveling abroad than foreign tourists are coming into the United States. A permanent wound when habits change. There is one crucial thing to remember. Tourism is not a factory that can restart by flipping a switch. New traditions. The Canadian family that chose Costa Rica or Europe instead of Florida in 2025 discovered new hotels, new restaurants, and new destinations. Why would they return to Florida, a place where they felt insulted? Future generations. Young Canadians who once spent their spring breaks or summer vacations in the U.S. are now building travel itineraries that exclude America entirely. This isn't just a loss for this year, it is guaranteed revenue forfeited for decades to come. Trump's miscalculation and the slap of reality. President Trump likely believed that America's military and economic power would force its neighbors to bow their heads. But 20 million ordinary Canadians have demonstrated that consumer choice is the most powerful force of all. You cannot compel anyone to visit your country by signing agreements. Once trust is broken, it takes years to repair. Political pressure, a rebellion at home. Trump's approval rating at home has fallen to 36%, and in Canada, it is essentially at rock bottom. The situation has grown so dire that Republican senators from border states have started publicly criticizing Trump's tariff policies. Their voters, small business owners, and service sector workers are on the brink of economic ruin without Canadian dollars. In the end, Donald Trump's America First policy has functioned as America Last in the tourism sector. The boycott of 2025 delivers a harsh lesson. Insulting a sovereign nation carries a cost paid not only in diplomatic terms, but also from the pockets of ordinary people. The question now is this: can America regain this lost trust, or will the $5.7 billion blow become a permanent scar in the nation's tourism history? At this stage of the report, it becomes clear that this $5.7 billion loss is far more than a number. It represents the beginning of the end of a relationship that has taken decades to build. For generations, Canadians saw the United States as their most reliable neighbor, trusted partner, and natural travel destination. But in 2025, Donald Trump shattered the very foundation of that trust. The price of miscalculation, when fear stops working. Trump believed that Canada had no alternatives in the face of America's vast economic and military power. He assumed that insulting Canada or threatening to turn it into the 51st state would intimidate Canadians into compliance. The result, however, has been the complete opposite. 20 million Canadians have shown that separation is better than a relationship without respect. The U.S. tourism industry in free fall. Montana's ski resorts are in despair, Florida's hotels are operating at 20% vacancy, and small businesses in Maine are facing the worst period in their history. U.S. senators are traveling to Ottawa to apologize, but even that isn't working, because there is no discount for humiliation. Canada's new direction. Canadians no longer wish to remain dependent on the United States. They are now turning toward Mexico, Costa Rica, and Europe. They are discovering new restaurants, building new memories, and forming new travel traditions.
The wound Trump has created will not disappear with a change in political leadership. Instead, it has taught Canadians a lasting lesson. Relying on America's unstable political landscape is a serious mistake. Trump wanted to show American dominance. Instead, he triggered a mass consumer boycott. And this boycott is stripping billions of dollars from the pockets of American workers. The $5.7 billion loss is just the beginning. Canadians have now answered a fundamental question, one that Trump unintentionally forced upon them. Does America still deserve Canada's tourism, money, and goodwill? Canadians' answer is clear, loud, and unmistakable. No. How did you like today's special analysis? Do you think Trump's strategy is nothing more than America shooting itself in the foot? Comment and let me know.